Hello everyone, this is Gene and I'm back with another video. Sorry for the low lighting. The topic I wanted to discuss today, or tonight rather, is it's not related automatically to comics and video games, but I'm gonna relate it back to that. But I think that if you're a 90s kid and you liked comedies, you probably will remember a lot of the stuff that I'm about to talk about. So, as you may or may not have heard, David Schwimmer, who played Ross on the TV show Friends, has kind of sort of ticked Black Twitter off. And this is one of the very few times that me and Black Twitter will actually be in agreement on things. If you're wondering why, it's because he did an interview about his role on Friends and his role in the backstage politics and whatnot. And he goes on and on about how even back then in the 1990s when the show was airing, I think it aired for like over 10 years or something, right? And how, he was a champion for diversity even back then. And he pushed for things like his character of Ross to have non-white girlfriend and to date outside of his race and all that. Okay, fine. All well and good. It's humble bragging in my opinion, but fine. All well and good. The problem, and where he ends up ticking off Black Twitter, is that he eventually goes on to say that he personally would not have a problem with a company, someone doing an all black or an all Asian reboot of the TV show Friends. Now, the reason Black Twitter is upset about this, and interestingly enough, the reason why I agree with them, because I tend to disagree strongly with the opinions of Black Twitter. I generally find it to be too, and perhaps it's kind of in the name, but just too racial, right? Everything has to be about oppression and all that stuff, and I'm just not for that. As I said in another video, just because I am descendant of slaves on one side and savages on the other doesn't mean that I personally am oppressed. Just because there is a history of oppression in the peoples that I am descended from, that does not mean I am oppressed. At least not any more so than life in in a modern city will oppress anybody. But anyway, right, as many people pointed out, and I firmly agree, there already was a Black Friends, right, as a comedy. It was the show Living Single, which was about several people, but the main cast or characters, right, were four female professionals for the 1990s, right? And in particular, that show, at least in my opinion, was sort of the launching point of Queen Latifah's post-rap acting career. Because prior to that, she had been in entertainment, but as this, very rough, tough girl, hardcore rapper, right? She had hits in the 80s like UNITY and what was it? I think the song is called Who You Calling a Bitch and stuff like that, right? She had this very hardcore, understandably so, hardcore image about her, right? But she sort of started going away from that and showing a different side to herself and showing her acting range with Living Single, where she played the character of Khadijah, and Khadijah was very nice and soft and warm and often the voice of reason, and she was a career woman, right? It was completely opposite of anything that Queen Latifah had been known for at that point in her career. Right? Even when she got her first big film break in like Set It Off, they sort of defaulted her back to tough, thug, angry girl and all that. But Living Single showed she could actually play something beyond that tough black girl stereotype. So it really helped, at least in my opinion, it really helped her career. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because, first of all, right, in my opinion, while I don't think David Schwimmer means any harm, to me this shows just his lack of knowledge and his, in my opinion, willful ignorance. There was a renaissance of black comedy shows in the 1990s. And many of those shows launched the careers of well-known prominent black actors, right? Will Smith got his start on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, right? He used that to start moving away from being known as just a rapper, and then of course he used that show as a launching pad to movies with like Independence Day and everything else, right? But that was his start, right, of being known as something other than the kid-friendly rapper, right? There was that. There was the comedy In the House. That was LL Cool J. Cool J, I think he was the lead on that show, if I remember correctly, and that again launched his career. Right? A lot of rappers use these shows to launch their post-rap careers as actors and even movie stars. Right, so you had Fresh Prince, you had In the House, you had Living Single, you had Martin, you had sketch shows like In Living Color. You had the Jamie Foxx show. That's another one that obviously launched Jamie Foxx into a wider audience. You had the Bernie Mac show. I think that was more the late 90s, but still. You had, I forget technically what the show was called, but I know Steve Harvey did a show because I watched it all the time as a kid. He did a show where he played a failed musician, and he had to go back to like the old high school that he used to go to school at and get a job as a teacher, and then like the lead female and the eventual love interest is like a girl that he picked on in high school and all that stuff, and it excuse me, it featured Cedric the Entertainer. It's very funny. If I remember correctly, one of the actors on that show, sadly, I think he played the character of Romeo. Sadly, he ended up being shot in the early 2000s. He made the classic mistake of making it out and then trying to go back to his humble beginnings. And his humble beginnings ended up taking his life. Right? But there was... that show, there was other shows like Hanging with Mr. Cooper. There were even shows that were kind of like dramedies or like dramata comedies, kind of like Girlfriends, which is where I first heard of Terry Ellis Ross. She's probably best known now as the mother from Blackish, but at least in my opinion, at least from what I know her, that was the first big show I ever saw her in. And then you had, what was it, A Different World, right? And Lisa Bonet's character sort of took off on her own with that show and all that. But here's the thing. There was this renaissance of, like, black media in the 1990s. If I remember correctly, even the cable channel BET, right? Black Entertainment Television, took off in the 1990s. You had shows like 106 in Park, and they would play all these, rap and R&B songs, and like aside from like your regular music circuit that like all of these artists would go to, like all the rappers, all the R&B stars went to like BET, right? I remember one of the first times I saw the artist Genuine was on a BET show, right? I think he was singing Pony, but I was too young to understand what Pony was about. But anyway, there was this renaissance of black media. You even had, what was it, like Showtime at the Apollo, and all these shows, right? You just start thinking back, and you just dig up all these old memories. And how do I put it? In my opinion, knowing this history, knowing how rich black media was, in particular black comedies, right, at the time were, right? You had, what was it, the Wayans brothers, and again, just so many. You give me enough time and I could probably rattle them all off. But, and again, I don't think that David Schwimmer means any harm, but at least in my opinion, there is so much white guilt in that statement. It's like, oh, here you disadvantaged brown people and people who have pale skin and very narrow eyes. You never got a decent shot in Hollywood. It's not like you went on to make your own TV shows and your own comedies. So here, use this platform that me and Courtney Cox and Jennifer Aniston are famous for. Here, you can take it. You can use it now. It's a hand-me-down. I don't think he means any harm. I want to be clear. I don't think he's being racist or anything, but it is such a hand-me-down, and it is such a bigotry of low expectations. Right here, here's my platform. You disadvantaged brown person, or you disadvantaged Asian person, like Margaret Cho didn't have a TV show, All in the Family in like the mid-90s, right? And this just reminds me of how willfully ignorant people in Hollywood can be, because they spend so much time in their echo chamber that they fail to reach out and research and realize that things are not as they seem and things are not as they think it is. And here's the thing. I personally wasn't a fan of Friends. I watched a few episodes. I couldn't get into it. But I loved Martin and Living Single and all those type of shows, right? I wouldn't mind those shows coming back, or someone making like a new version of it, but playing on the same themes, like, young people, right? In particular, young African Americans, because yes, education and especially higher education is a huge issue in the Black community. So I certainly wouldn't mind seeing like a modern day version of A Different World, or a modern day version of Living Single or Martin or anything like that. But I think that it should be original, right? You can use the same themes, but it should be its own original thing. And you certainly don't need to use the Friends platform to have your own voice. If people don't want to listen to you, grab a damn microphone or a phone or a smartphone in my case, and make sure that you are heard. Now, how this rounds back to comic books and video games and whatnot, sorry for the head shake, my neck is kind of stiff, it's because you see this type of thinking a lot in comic books and video games to a degree, but especially more in comic books, right? How comic characters, classic characters, get killed off in favor of their oftentimes marginalized counterpart, whether it's a woman or whether it's a character who isn't straight or whether it's someone who isn't white, right? They're killed off for the marginalized, for the minority character, who oftentimes, due to poor writing, is underdeveloped and can't carry on the mantle and the legacy of the original character. Or you have characters, as I've said in other videos, like She-Hulk or X-23, who, due to good writing and history, had actually risen above being just the female version of a particular male character, and then poor writing and just the very forced nature of their becoming Hulk or their becoming Wolverine makes them the very thing that so many writers and fans in the past fought against, which was just the female version of, right? There's such a regression and a de-evolution of these characters, because all that's being pushed is just this bigotry of low expectations. Let's kill Wolverine. Who cares if he has a strong fan base the world over, that men and women like him as a character? Let's kill him, and let's take X-23, strip her of her own identity, throw her in Wolverine's outfit, and give her a name that she didn't want and that she didn't earn, right? Or let's take She-Hulk, right, and strip her of her personality and everything that made her unique and different from Bruce Banner, right? And let's just make her basically Hulk in a wig, and take away everything that readers, be they male or female, liked about her, right? They're so concerned about putting a marginalized character in this place of prominence, right? Here, use this elevated character's platform. They don't realize how insulting that is, right? And how it's the bigotry of low expectations. But B, all it does is just hurt the character. It hurts the value and the standing of the character that was forced into this situation. Because guess what? A good writer can take a bad situation, and as the saying goes, take chicken crap and turn it into chicken salad, right? But that's not what these writers do. These decisions are made on high to arbitrarily force these characters into spots of prominence and names of prominence and mantles of prominence that they didn't earn. And then the subpar writing, where the writers 9 times out of 10 are put on these books for nothing other than their gender, if it's a female, right? If it's a female character, or in the case of characters who are in particular gay or lesbian, right? They put a gay writer on it because that's somehow going to make it better, right? You had Gabby Rivera, who's a lesbian, who wrote America, who's a lesbian. And of course, you had Sina Grace, who wrote Iceman, and of course, Iceman was retconned to be gay all along, and Sina Grace got two chances at gay Iceman, and wrecked them both because Sina Grace, at least for superhero comics, is not a good writer. And when you do these type of things, when you trade on just gender or ethnicity or sexuality, when you're a reason for hiring someone, like say in the case of Eve Ewing. Now this isn't to insult her, but let's be honest. She was hired, at least initially, for the Ironheart book because she's black and she comes from Chicago. The character of Riri Williams is black and comes from Chicago. Those are not reasons to put any writer on any book. Now, if your writer is a good writer and they happen to have these things in common, that's one thing. But it's another to choose a writer and put them on this because they are that thing. Even with Kelly Sue DeConnick, they put her on Captain Marvel when she was revamped back in 2012 because Kelly Sue DeConnick grew up a military brat and had a drinking problem at one point in her life. Carol, right, has a long and vaunted history with the Air Force and had a drinking problem at one point in her character's history. That's not a reason to put Kelly Sue on any damn thing. It just happens to be two things that a real person and a fictional person have in common. That would be like putting me on a Wolverine book because I can be angry and have an attitude and be angsty. I would need more than that to write Wolverine. I would make sure I had more than that to write Wolverine, right? You don't put a Canadian, for example, on a Wolverine book just because Wolverine and him are Canadian, or her are Canadian, right? You put the person on the book if they can write the character, or if they haven't written the character, they demonstrate potential with their other work to possibly do well on this character. But when you have this prevailing ideology, right, in media, whether that media be movies or video games or comic books or TV sitcoms, of just here, take this platform, take this hand-me-down. It's okay. You can use it. Disadvantaged party, marginalized person. It's degrading, it's dehumanizing, and it's pretty much saying you can't make it on your own. You can't make your own shows. You can't make your own characters. So we're just going to give you a leg up by just giving you, our used platform, our used names and characters and costumes. It's cheap, it's insulting, it's creatively lazy, and it totally disregards history, and at least in my opinion shows how utterly ignorant some people in Hollyweird whatever genre of it you want to look at can be. So no, I don't want to see characters, right, in another man or woman's clothes. I want to see characters stand on their own 2 feet. I want to see them become their own people and their own persons. Again, we had a black renaissance of comedies in the 90s because these black artists, and oftentimes rappers, right? Rappers or comedians were tired of waiting for their opportunity, waiting to be noticed by mainstream TV shows or the white man or whatever it is. They said, okay, I'm saying, hey, give me a shot, and you don't want to do it? Okay, fine. We'll make our own cable channel. We'll make our own shows, and we will sink or swim, do or die, on our own merits. We'll make stuff for us, by us, right? FUBU. For us, by us. And guess what? They did well, because while those shows certainly had a certain audience, right, a predominantly black audience, right, they weren't totally pushing away other audiences too, right? For example, right, you could be gay and still enjoy In Living Color, even as they made fun of flamboyant gay culture with the men on film skits and various other things, right? So anyway, that's the video. I'm kind of out of breath, and I can't think of anything else to say other than that. I think that across the board, Hollywood needs to stop with the hand-me-downs. If younger siblings hate hand-me-downs, hate having to take on their older siblings, out of date, unstylish, oversized clothes, right? Then why in the world do you think an entire group of people is going to be okay with your hand-me-downs, Hollywood? And that includes comic books, because Marvel's owned by Disney, and Disney is as Hollywood as anything else at the moment. So anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.